Good afternoon, everyone. I am Marcia Brewster, president of UNA USA Westchester chapter. We are delighted to welcome you all, including our own members and our partners from UNA Bronx and the Westchester chapter of the Links Incorporated. First, we will listen to the statement from UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres on the occasion of UN Day.
The United Nations is the product of hope. The hope and resolve following the Second World War to move beyond global conflict to global cooperation. Today, our organization is being tested like never before. But the United Nations was made for moments like these. Now more than ever, we need to bring to life the values and principles of the UN Charter in every corner of the world. By giving peace a chance and ending conflicts that jeopardize lives, futures, and global progress. By working to end extreme poverty, reduce inequalities, and rescue the Sustainable Development Goals. By safeguarding our planet, including by breaking our addiction to fossil fuels and kickstarting the renewable energy revolution. And by finally balancing the scales of opportunity and freedom for women and girls and ensure human rights for all. As we mark UN Day, let us renew our hope and conviction in what humanity can achieve when we work as one in global solidarity.
As we mark the 77th anniversary of the founding of the United Nations, the Secretary General exhorts us to renew our hope and conviction in what humanity can achieve when we work as one in global solidarity. I'm very excited about today's program on restorative justice, globally and in Westchester County, and programs that impact youth. In 2015, all the UN member states came together and adopted the Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs, a list of 17 goals to achieve a better and more sustainable future for all by 2030. While each goal matters on its own, they are all interconnected, incorporating social, economic, and environmental sustainability. Goal 16 focuses on peace, justice, and strong institutions. And today we have with us the Global Goals Ambassador for this topic, Tatiana Scantlebury, who will address you in a few minutes. Our program committee chose this topic because of the crucial importance of improving outcomes for young people who are marginalized or caught in a justice system that reduces their chances for a fulfilling and rewarding life. A lot of thought and work has gone into the planning of today's program, and I want to thank the program committee, Colleen Gardefay, Dan Baina, Lily Schindler, Leslie Sorrell, Jackie Boucher, and others. We are grateful for the support of our co-sponsors, UNA Bronx chapter and the Westchester County chapter of the Links Incorporated. Now I would like to call on Hillary Fleming, president of the Westchester County chapter of the Links Incorporated, to welcome you and tell you a little about her organization. Hillary, you have the floor.
Thank you, Marcia. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Hillary Fleming, and I am the president of the Westchester County, New York chapter of the Links Incorporated. Our organization works very much with the UN, specifically the UNA of Westchester, our chapter in particular, but we are part of a national organization, the Links Incorporated, which is made up of 299 chapters, predominantly in the United States, and predominantly African-American women. We are dedicated and have been dedicated to serving our communities all across the nation, as well as globally. And the Links Incorporated has a partnership with the United Nations Association. So it's very important and very wonderful for us to be able to support this event today at the local level with the Westchester chapter. So I'd like to thank Marcia and your organization for inviting us to be a co-sponsor and for us to be able to be here today. Our organization does community service throughout the area, and we have been here in Westchester since June 10th, 1950. So we are about to celebrate 73 years of community service. And yes, we talk about the local Westchester community, but we also have interests in the global community and making sure that not only our members, but our community is aware of the global issues that are facing us and how we can cooperate and collaborate to meet those needs and fill those gaps along the way. So again, very happy to be here and very delighted that one of our own chapter members, the Honorable Kathy Davidson, is here as part of this panel. So please enjoy today's program, take notes, and get involved. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Hillary. I think both of our organizations are over 70 years old, so that's quite a record. It is now my honor to introduce Tatiana Scantlebury, who is president of the Bronx chapter of UNA USA and is also the UNA Global Goals Ambassador for Goal 16. Tatiana, you have the floor.
Hello, everyone, and special thank you to UNA Westchester for hosting this powerful discussion. I'm honored to serve as the UNA USA Global Goals Ambassador for the Sustainable Development Goal 16. SDG 16 aims to improve people's lives by reducing violence, improving access to justice, and promoting effective, accountable, and inclusive institutions. Strengthening the rule of law and promoting human rights are important to the advancement of sustainable development. It is essential for each society to have a strong, efficient institution to ensure the rights of citizens are fulfilled. In today's discussion, we will be focusing on restorative justice. SDG 16 promotes access to justice, which is one of the key components of a fair, humane, effective, inclusive, and efficient criminal justice system. Access to justice focuses on promoting police reform, access to legal aid, restorative justice programs, and access to justice for victims of crimes. In our domestic and international communities, we have witnessed many challenges that hinder this, such as inadequate legislation and policies, limited financial resources, lack of knowledge of how to obtain services, and inefficient number of trained professionals to effectively deliver support. Through this conversation, we will gain more insight on how significant and important of how we should continue to promote the work of SDG 16 and how to overcome these challenges. As an advocate for SDG 16, peace, justice, and strong institutions, I encourage you all to continue to speak up in forums such as these, be an active participant in your local and global community, and educate yourselves on your rights, as it is essential to achieving meaningful justice. Thank you. Over to you, Marsha.
Thank you so much, Tatiana, for that great explanation. Today's program will begin with our keynote speaker, Asha Castleberry Hernandez, who has experience in conflict zones where young people are attracted by terrorist groups and gangs and so on. Following Asha's presentation, we are proud to present 3 judges in Westchester County who are promoting restorative justice programs for young people. The panel will include Judge Kathy Davidson, Judge Jared Rice, and Judge Lyndon Williams, and will be moderated by Joanne Dunn. Following the panel, we will hear from 2 people who have had experience in the broken justice system and have overcome obstacles to leading a fulfilling life, Sean Pica and Lily Brady. The program will be followed by a question and answer period moderated by Joanne Dunn and Leslie Sorrell. Here are some housekeeping notes. Members of the audience are encouraged to pose questions in the chat. These will be picked up by our moderators in the Q&A session. In your questions, please do not use this program as a political platform. It is meant as a useful addition to government and non-governmental humanitarian programs. There will be a few final slides at the end that will direct interested people to resources related to the programs that have been highlighted during the program. We intend to send these slides out to the registrants after the program. The full bios of all the speakers and the moderators can be found at our website, www.unawestchester.org, right below the flyer for today's program. We will not be giving them the full bios today, so I hope you will access that to see their impressive accomplishments. The program will be recorded and will be available for viewing by all who are interested. We will send you the link in our follow-up email. Now, I am honored to introduce our keynote speaker, Asha Castleberry Hernandez. She is founder of the Diversity in National Security Network, which aims to create opportunities for diverse candidates in national security and foreign policy areas. She served with the Biden-Harris administration as a senior advisor in the Bureau of Near Eastern Affairs at the Department of State and is a major in the U.S. Army Reserve. Her career includes serving in Kuwait and Iraq and with the U.S. mission to the UN in New York. And there she worked with the UN peacekeeping operations in Africa. In her student days, she worked as an intern with UNA Westchester. Asha, you have the floor.
Thank you, Marcy. I appreciate that. The lovely introduction. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you again for the wonderful invitation to be your keynote speaker. I'm excited to join UNA USA Westchester and Bronx chapter, as well as the Westchester chapter of the Links Incorporated. I'm thrilled to discuss the topic today, which is nourishing peace and restorative justice, innovative programs, and youth. SDG 16, which is access to peace, justice, and strong institutions, definitely needs a vibrant discussion among our communities on what exactly is SDG 16 and how can we move forward in implementing the efforts to make it happen as far as our strategic goals. This is a critical topic that needs more attention and should be looked upon as both a domestic and global issue. Slides. Great, so next slide, please. Great, so just a quick background. Again, throughout my career, I've unexpectedly worked on youth justice and security issues. Here's my background, of course, on this slide. In 2011, as mentioned before, I served in the U.S. mission to United Nations, working on peacekeeping missions in the African continent. And the type of programs that we supported that complements and SDG 16 is what we call disarmament, demobilization, and reintegration programs. And I'll elaborate more about that. I also worked on the counter ISIS mission and security cooperation in Iraq, Kuwait, and Jordan. And in my capacity, we dealt with a lot of youth joining Daesh or ISIS in Syria and Iraq, and also elaborate on that topic as well. And lastly, I worked on, of course, I served in the Biden-Harris administration, worked on Middle East policy in China, which continued my focus on counterterrorism, youth issues, and as well as justice. Next slide, please. So here are my wonderful photos of me in uniform. So thank you. Next slide. And then here's my wonderful photos at the United Nations, where I actually served at the Security Council, sitting right behind former US Ambassador to UN, Ambassador Rice, working on exactly on UN peacekeeping missions. And again, topics like DDRs, a focus on child soldiers came up a lot. And during that time under the Obama administration, we supported the DDR programs because we felt that helped against support SDG 16, as well as helped with sustainable peace and security. Next slide, please. Okay, so now I'm gonna move on to UN peacekeeping, which again, I worked on. In 2011, UN peacekeeping missions addressed youth, and in this case, I'm gonna say child soldiers, security and justice issues through many programs, including disarmament, demobilization, and reintegration, also known as DDRs. DDR is a process of removing weapons from the hands of members of armed groups, taking these combatants, especially child soldiers, out of their groups and helping them to reintegrate as civilians into society. So where they're dealing with it in a post-conflict area. DDR seeks to support ex-combatants and those associated with armed groups so that they can become active participants in the peace process. So this is a very extreme to another extreme approach. And as an alternative path, allowing some of these ex-combatants to integrate formal uniformed services of the state allows their status to be regularized and ensure a close link between DDR and security sector reform. So the transition is quite intensive, coming from being a combatant and then transitioning them from becoming citizens and being part of the peace process. So give them another chance, because of the fact that we cannot judge them that they experienced conflict, might have contributed to conflict, and then now we have to take those same type of young people and have them part of the peace process. So also the UN adopted from traditional sequence and individual force disarmament, demobilization, and reintegration to a more community-based approach known as second generation DDRs. At the forefront of this was what we call a community violence reduction program. The UN has implemented community violence reduction programs targeting youth at risk to prevent further recruitment, Community violence reductions plays a huge key role in reducing tensions at the grassroots level to increase opportunities for social cohesion as well as conflict resolution. So the UN has now expanded its scope as far as trying to work with young people who have been in these conflict areas, but being more community-based by implementing community community anti-violence reduction programs. Next slide, please. Next slide. Okay, great, next slide. So now I will transition to countering ISIS mission, which is, again, another peace and security issue where you're dealing with conflict zones, and again, has attracted a lot of young people to be part of these unfortunate circumstances. So again, this is another youth security and global justice issue. While serving in the counter ISIS mission in Iraq and Kuwait, an increased number of American teenagers joined ISIS, many of them as foreign fighters. Many of them left their homes all around the world to join the caliphate. I remember actually when I was in Iraq, watching just the commercials on TV, the news, mentioning how we've had young women from Seattle as well as Alabama coming right out of their senior year to join ISIS. And the big question was, well, why are they joining ISIS? Why are they joining such an evil, mean, organization? So in my slide, I pretty much addressed that. So we wanted to know what was the mindset of these young people. Some of them were inspired because they saw the strength of ISIS. They were able to take away from a sovereign state, a fragile sovereign state, key areas and be able to hold on it. Some of them were also married other ISIS members, and also they did it for religious reasons. And then here's another unfortunate reason. Some of them actually went because they followed their parents to these conflict areas and served there, or were born in the caliphate and then were raised there within the caliphate, which extended from Al Raqqa in Syria all the way to eastern Baghdad. So this was really intensive, and we had to figure out what could we do to address this issue. Next slide, please. Okay, so I'll just wrap it up here. The urgent return and repatriation of foreign fighters and their families from these conflict zones is the only international law compliant response to the increasing complex and precarious human rights and humanitarian security situation faced on these women and youth. Were actually detained in inhumane conditions in overcrowded camps, prisons, or elsewhere in northern Syria, Arab Republic, and Iraq. This process also requires through individual evaluation of each child from their human rights perspective, including cases involving gender-based violence and prosecution against women and children who return from Syria and Iraq, including in third world countries. So there was this big situation where we had to bring them back as returnees, and how do you deal with them involving the justice system? And going to the next slide, many of us felt that we should follow the UNICEF model, the strategic goals which UNICEF believes in. Provide children who their citizens that were part of ISIS or born to nationals with civilian documentation. Prevent these children from being stateless or becoming stateless. Support their safe, dignified, and voluntary return and reintegration into their countries of origin. And for children who have been detained, ensure that detention is a measure of last resort and for the shortest time possible. Next slide, please. And just name two more. For children who are detained, ensure that the detention is measure of the last resort and for the shortest time possible. Also, for children who are over the age of criminal responsibility and who are accused of criminal acts, make sure that their internationally recognized standards for fair trial and juvenile justice are applied. So here are some of the top, again, recommendations we feel how you should handle those that have experienced conflict. Yes, might have been involved in some unfortunate circumstances, but the justice system should really fairly look at their situation and know how to better handle them through strong international law strategy. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Aisha. Asha, that you were exactly within your time. You were exactly within your time, and also you had so much to cover and so many good recommendations. I'm sorry you didn't have more time. In any case,
okay.
Now I'm pleased to call on Colleen Gardefeu, UNA Westchester's program co-chair, who will introduce the rest of the program. Colleen.
Thank you so much, Marcia, and good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining us. We're moving from the international to the local level. We are delighted to hear from 3 local judges who have launched and implemented innovative court programs promoting youth justice in New Rochelle, Mount Vernon, and Family Court. I have the distinct pleasure and honor to work with Judge Rice on the New Rochelle initiative. We have a perfect moderator for this panel, Joanne Dunn, who works closely with the Mount Vernon initiative and has also worked with us in New Rochelle. Here's a little background about Joanne. Joanne is the first woman to be named Executive Director of the Youth Shelter Program of Westchester since its incorporation in 1975. For the past 2 decades, Joanne has worked to improve the lives of troubled youths in Westchester. She is the recipient of many awards, including she's the dual recipient of the Peekskill NAACP Outstanding Service to Youth and Families Award. In addition, she was recognized as a 40 under 40 Rising Star by the Business Council of Westchester. And recently, she was one of 3 women throughout the county to receive the 2022 Shiro Award from the Westchester County Youth Bureau. Joanne also works with the Abbott House and Westchester County Department of Social Services to promote and locate foster families. She and her husband, Daryl, are parents to 1 biological child and 2 foster care children. Joanne, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Colleen.
Thank you.
I'm actually very glad to be here. Good afternoon, everyone. Kind of nervous, but I think I can handle this today as the moderator. So thank you, Marcia, the UN, and of course, the Westchester and Bronx chapters of the UNA USA and the Links Incorporated for having us today. This is a discussion that is near and dear to my heart. So I get the honor of presenting the judges locally here in Westchester County. The first judge I will bring on the screen is the Honorable Judge Kathy Davidson. She was a judge for the Westchester County Family Court in New York. She began serving in this position in 2004. She has also been the supervising judge of the family courts of the New York's 9th Judicial District. Additionally, she was the acting judge of the Supreme Court 9th Judicial District. She was reelected to family court in 2013. The Honorable Judge Kathy Davison is the initiator of the Westchester Girls Justice Initiative, also known now as Westchester County's Gender Responsive Initiative Partnerships. We will learn more about her work with the Grip Court and her work as well as the Dean of the New York State Judicial Institute. Please join me in welcoming Judge Davison to the floor. Judge Davison, are you here?
Yes, I am. Good afternoon to everyone.
Good afternoon. So before we bring the other judges, we figure we get you started with just a question. So the question for you is, what were you seeing regarding the individuals appearing before you that made you want to launch Grip Court, which stands for Gender Responsive Initiatives and Partnership in 2018? And what outcomes are you seeing through the program?
Sure. So again, I too want to thank the UNA and USA and Bronx chapter and the Westchester County chapter, the links who I'm a member. So what I was seeing after sitting in family court for many years, that there was a disproportionate number of girls of color entering the juvenile justice system. And having worked representing children my whole career, it was something that I was very concerned about. Obviously, I'm a product of integration. So growing up in segregated schools, I know that girls of color are not the only girls that ultimately have issues with the juvenile justice system within it. So with that, we began to study, a group of us, a team in Westchester County, and we began to study and look across the United States, visited many other states that actually have girls' court. And over time, we learned that the juvenile justice system was affecting girls of color in a way that was not holistic, would not prevent recidivism. So it's out of that desire to make our communities better, and making our communities better through our girls was the goal of not just me, but the group that we started to have a girls' court, which ultimately turned into the Grip Court, because we found that we had to be responsible to the LGBTQ community. We had girls that we had transitioning in. We found that when they were co-respondents, we found that when you uplift girls, you will also uplift non-girls of color and boys. So that's a little snippet of how we started. And thank you.
Thank you, Judge Davison. Secondly, I'd like to bring to the Zoom the Honorable Jarrett Rice from the City Court of New Rochelle. Judge Jarrett Rice joined the bench in New Rochelle City Court in January 2020, where he presides over criminal, civil, and traffic matters daily. In October 2020, Judge Rice initiated the Opportunity Youth Part, the first emerging adult justice initiative in the 9th Judicial District, which works with defendants ages 16 to 24 who are justice involved. Prior to 2020, Judge Rice was a public defender. Additionally, between 2011 and 2019, Judge Rice was a member of the New Rochelle City Council, where he spearheaded Westchester's first My Brother's Keeper initiative. Please join me in bringing Judge Jarrett Rice to the stage. Hi, Jarrett. How are you?
Very good. Good afternoon, Joanne. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you to UNA USA Westchester. It's an honor and a privilege to be here with you all, especially with these great colleagues that I have that I'm sharing this platform with on youth justice. I'm a judge here in New Rochelle City Court, but prior to that, as Joanne said, I was a public defender in the city of Mount Vernon for about 14 years. And in that capacity, I was able to be the lead defense attorney for a program called the Adolescent Diversion Part. So before we had raised the age, 16 to 17-year-olds were automatically criminalized. And because of that, we wanted to create new laws. New York was one of the 2 states at the time that automatically did that. And we had a special part before Raise the Age came about, which now no longer criminalizes those 16, 17-year-olds. And I was able to use that experience, use my experience as a city council person in New Rochelle, where we were the first community to adopt the My Brother's Keeper challenge from then President Obama. That was focused on young people, particularly boys and young men of color. And with that, I came to the bench in 2020 with this spirit about bringing about youth justice. And we learned from the brain science that the brain does not fully develop until about 25 or so. So because of that, when I used to see the 18 to 24-year-olds in my court, I always wondered, what were they doing? Or Were they working? Were they in school? And most often they were not. They were totally disconnected. So we wanted to start something new. And think about the time period. This is 2020. The pandemic started in March. George Floyd came about May. And we wanted to do something. As judges, we cannot do much advocacy. We can't talk much other than what we're saying when we're on the bench. But I wanted to be able to do something that outlived kind of what we were able to do and speak about it. And from that, we were able to start the Opportunity Youth Park. It's a park for 16, 24-year-olds, and we meet every Thursday. We work with community providers, and we do a couple of things. We, one, focus on their case, and we try to get better legal outcomes for them. But two, we want them to bring about the best of themselves. And in doing so, we are able to work with service providers on case management, mental health, behavioral health, substance abuse, vocational training, academic supports and engagements, and mentorship. And with that, we now have a really successful model. We're 2 years in. We have our 2-year anniversary coming up in a couple of weeks. I'm just thrilled to be able to have a career where I can wake up every day and fight for youth justice. Thank you, Joanne.
Thank you, Judge Rice. I didn't even have to get to my question because you answered it already. Well, wonderful. But we're going to get back to you at the end of this panel discussion because we want to learn more about the outcomes that are happening with these young people. And last but not least to the stage is Judge Lyndon Williams from the City Court of Mount Vernon. On August 3rd, 2020, the Honorable Lyndon Williams was appointed Mount Vernon City Judge by Mayor Sean Patterson Howard. Judge Williams succeeded Adrian Armstrong, who actually run the Adolescent Diversion Program here in the city of Mount Vernon. Prior to his appointment, Judge Williams had served a Westchester County legislator for 13 years. And in 2021, Judge Williams, along with Judge Nichelle Johnson, was extremely instrumental in launching the Mount Vernon Emerging Adult Justice Initiative, which operates as a specialty part of the city court that handles exclusive cases of youth ages 18 to 25. The goal is to reduce incarceration of emerging adults and to match these youth to appropriate interventions. Welcome to the stage, to the Zoom stage, Judge Williams. We can't hear you. Let me see.
Why you can't hear me is that I was muted.
There you go.
Okay. Now that I've unmuted myself, thank you, Joanne. Thank you to the UNA Westchester and Bronx counties for hosting this program, as well as to the Links organization. I'm delighted to be here today to discuss this very important topic of restorative justice, especially as it relates to our young people. The Emerging Adult Justice Court in Mount Vernon is not a new, it's not a new court. As Judge Rice indicated, we had an adolescent diversion program existing for years prior to this. However, what happens is that as judges move on and people move out, if the program is not institutionalized, what happens, the programs kind of die off. In 2021, I had done some research in the court myself, going back and looking at the cases that we had on the calendar and checking that against when persons were first arrested, and found that we did not have intervention in many of those cases that you had offenders repeated. So through that process, we launched the Emerging Adult Justice part in June of 2021 through a collaborative effort with the partnership between the Mount Vernon City Court, the 9th Judicial District with Judge Davidson as the administrative judge, the Westchester County District Attorney's Office, as well as legal aid and others. And we were able to get this program on the way. But it's important to understand that restorative justice is not just 2 words, really. It comes with providing meaningful opportunity to resolve cases in a manner other than what we traditionally are accustomed to doing, in terms of criminal justice. Prosecution, sentencing, and incarceration has been the means by which the system dealt with young people between the ages of 18 and 25. And we have decided that we need to look at that differently and look at that in a way that not only considers the person, but considers the victims also. And so we've worked with the Youth Shelter of Westchester as our coordinator. And we were able to have a number of our young people going through the program. I will talk a little more about it as we go along, but I just wanted to share with you that restorative justice requires us to really look at not only where the person is when they're in front of a judge or in front of a court system, but what really occurred before they got to that point in time, and how we can kind of shape a different way for them. Thank you, Joanne.
Thank you, Judge Williams. I made a comment in the chat because I laughed. The judges just jumped right in. So we don't even need to ask them questions. I would actually like to bring all the judges to the floor. We're going to actually have a panel discussion now. And again, this is a conversation that is near and dear to my heart because I understand that we can't arrest our way to a better future. And we really have to make sure that community is a bedrock when we talk about restorative justice for these young people and providing meaningful opportunities. So I'll start with Judge Rice. Improving the life outcomes for the young people you are serving requires funding. Are you finding ways to identify sources of funding at the local, regional, or national level, or through foundations or individual donors?
That's a great question. We need funding to do pretty much anything we want to do. We have different branches of government, and the judicial branch is difficult because it's conservative, it's traditional, and we have to look outside to figure out partnerships and strategic ways to bring about new ways to bring in new resources into the court. So one thing that we did with the Opportunity Youth part, the first and foremost thing, we wanted to reach out into the community, see what existing resources we had. So the nonprofit sector is very large in Westchester and New Rochelle, and they're doing a lot of great work. And initially what we wanted to do was just connect those resources that were right there, right within our arm's reach. So we had Westcott, we had West Hab, we had the Guidance Center, we had Lexington Center for Recovery, and they were already doing this great work. So what we wanted to do was literally bring them into the courthouse. We wanted to make them feel welcome on Thursday afternoon. Every Thursday we invite them. We have the virtual option now. That's one of the benefits of the pandemic, now that we can meet over Teams and Zoom, and we were able to take use of that to bring those resources. And from there, we were successful in working with our foundation partners. The Westchester Community Foundation was the first one to step up to the plate. And now because of that, we have the Center for Court Innovation, which is in the courthouse with us. We have a grant program where we work with the state court partner of the court system, Center for Court Innovation. So we're always on the lookout for resources. We work with what we have. It's a hard work. I believe that the nonprofit sector is maybe the most underpaid sector in all of America. And the work that they do, it's a testament to them, because they're the ones who are out there in the community on a day-to-day basis, night in, night out, working with these young people. But moving forward, we now are in a position 2 years in to put plans on paper to see how we could grow this even further. One of the things that we're now looking at and identifying is the fact that you don't necessarily have to come to court to receive these resources, right?
Absolutely.
So we want to look on the preventative side. One of the first things that we hear when we speak to the young people who were in court was, I had no idea that these things existed. And to be able to outreach and get them out to the community and get the word out before they come to the court, or even after they come to the court, I think that's kind of the next frontier of what we're doing. But all of this requires resources, and by testament of the good work that we're doing and you all in Mount Vernon and elsewhere, when we're able to spread the word about this new criminal justice reform movement called Emerging Adult Justice, I think that we're right in the sweet spot. We're at the pinnacle of it right now. We're moving things forward. So I think that the best is yet to come.
Absolutely. So everyone on this call, money, 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 money. Okay, just had to add that. That's all. My next question is actually for Judge Davison. There will always be naysayers when it comes to a new approach to criminal justice reform. How do you balance the need for public safety and victims' right with the also important need to bring mercy and compassion to legal cases, particularly those that involve young offenders?
So first of all, when addressing the issue of juvenile justice, and all the studies pretty much shows that in that arena, especially when you talk about girls and what's coming into court, are usually the lower offenses, not the higher offense. And from the start, every judge is required to have a balancing act in terms of determining what should happen with this particular child. It's by statute, but we always have to have the least restrictive means. And that was what I noticed on one of the slides by our keynote speaker. We always have to look at what is the least restrictive needs and balancing that with the community. So I think in terms of, and I'm going to deal specifically with family court, because when you deal in family court, it's a little bit different than the court, the two courts that my colleagues are. You're dealing with a holistic approach. So you're dealing with the family. So typically a child is just not going to be released on their own recognizance. It doesn't happen that way. There's going to be a family member. There's going to be someone who's close to child who will be with that child. So there's always been those issues. I think these issues that are political issues, we always want to, when times are rough, we always want to think about criminalizing youth. And that's why you have to have these courts. That's why we have to speak about these courts. That's why we have to institutionalize these courts. These courts are really existing now because you have actually 4 judges, Judge Humphrey, who actually presides over the GRIP court, have within themselves made a determination that they think this is important to our youth. This is what's critical. Institutionalizing of this means that the community must say, we want this to be part of the juvenile justice system, which I'm speaking for. And so one of the things that we're going to do at the Judicial Institute we've started is creating a blueprint for this and engaging the community. And I'm not really concerned about, that's what happens with the judge. You take the heat that comes with it.
That's what comes with the territory. And we thank you for your work. We thank you. And so my next question is for Judge Lyndon Williams. As your programs aim for compassionate legal outcomes for the young participants you work with, what is required to work harmoniously and respectfully with law enforcement officers and the district attorneys?
I think that's a great question, because none of this can be done by just the judge or the DA or the defense bar. It has to be a collaborative effort, and it has to be a collaborative effort all around. Even in access and service, I happen to have been a county legislator before coming to the court. And I know of the network of services that are available in Westchester County because I've been a part of funding much of that network of services. But it's important that we have the DA, the district attorney, on board, not as someone to get an opinion, to be a full partner in actually structuring the positive outcome. It's important for us to have defense counsel on board in structuring outcomes. And it's important for us to have the network of services and coordination on board fully in order to make sure that we just don't have a program that at the end of the day, we're seeing this person back again. Our program is focused on long-term solutions, not just simply disposition of the case, but disposition of the case and ensuring that the participant will likely not reoffend because they have a job or they've received mental health services, or the district attorney has actually worked on a disposition which the court would review that is workable for that person. So, another point of this is the victims, because obvious times in our community, you have both victims on the other side who are concerned. And what we've done is, importantly, to try to, in disposition of cases, to have the district attorney have discussions with the victims, so the victims understand that the person is not being let out into the streets as one might think, that they are really placed in a program that restores this person to a positive, law-abiding lifestyle. Mm-hmm. That's important in terms of giving the confidence in the judicial system to the person, to a victim or families of victims.
Absolutely. Thank you, Judge Williams. I'm going to try to keep moving along because I know we have a few more minutes. So my next question, I'm going to go back to Judge Rice. And Judge Rice, the question I have for you, are you seeing ways to take the lessons you are learning through the implementation of your programs to both families and younger individuals regarding messages about the need to graduate from high school, stay clear of dangerous drugs, and maintain strong family ties? Are you at any point where you can look at prevention angle of reducing crime and improving life outcomes for young male and females, particularly for teens and young adults of color who are disproportionately arrested and involved with your programs? You're on mute, so.
I did that. I promised myself I wasn't gonna do that.
It's okay, it happens.
So that's a great question. For those of us doing this work, all 4 of us, we do this work on a daily basis, and we know it's not easy work. We know that we see successes, we see victories, and we see failures, right? So I think for us, celebrating those small victories, those small wins, those are momentum builders. Not only are they momentum builders for that individual, but they're momentum builders for all the youth involved. When they see somebody else who could graduate high school, So we have young people who come to us, 18, 19, they may have dropped out, and they're still within that age and that time frame where they could re-engage with school, whether at the night school level or summer school. And to get you while you're captive, you're right there, you have 3 or 4 credits to go to motivate you, to get you to accomplish that. That's a huge win. And we have seen about 2 or 3 times. We know that substance abuse, it's a real thing, and for young people it's just scarier and sadder. And now, unfortunately, we are entering this new era where we have fentanyl, which is widely available. New Rochelle is not immune to what's happening all throughout the country. So we are working with our substance abuse providers, and we're getting those small victories when we can. We know that we don't get those all the time. When it comes to getting a job, whether it's working at the Youth Bureau Summer Employment Program, whether it's another internship, whether it's working at McDonald's, just getting your feet wet, getting into the door, getting to that workflow, getting into the mode of waking up on time and having responsibilities and being accountable to yourself, to others, to your family, to your community. It's all about getting those small victories. And once you see those build up over time, you see those becoming to be lifelong habits. And we are still early on in the process, 2 years in, but we're starting to see some of those longitudinal studies and so success stories. We had one young man who we finished with, and we haven't seen him for a year. We come back a year later, we find out that he got his GED, he's working, he's doing all these amazing things. And when we left him, we were just hoping for the best, but the best is actually happening now. So I think that we're instilling these values into these young people, the values that our caring adults, we try to hold ourselves accountable to those as well. And it's a day-by-day process. This is person-by-person process. But when you put the hard work in and when you have the right spirit, love coming out of your heart, I think that you will get those results. We're starting to see those early on.
I totally agree with you. And I thank you all for your work. I mean, it's like you said, it's hard, but it's necessary work. Is there anything that Judge Davison or Judge Williams would like to add to that question? Because I think it's so important when we think of the work that we're doing. These are new courts that are launching. And so if there's a way that, you know, you're learning lessons on the journey, and how do we get to a preventive angle on that? So if there's anything you want to add, please feel free to jump in and tackle that. If not, we can move on to our next question.
I just want to add, I think Judge Rice made an excellent point that the victories, some of them are small, but they are profound victories. I give you an example of one young man that we've had when he came before me in the arraignment process, was not clear whether he wanted to get into the program, but get into the program, work very hard, understanding that success comes from not only the services you receive, but your responsibility in shaping your success. Eventually graduated, passed his high school equivalency exam. I reached out to Westchester Community College, and now he's enrolled in Westchester Community College. Wanted to be a police officer. We brought him down and introduced him to the police commissioner. He got to meet the commissioner and detectives. So he's studying now to become a police officer. Get a college degree, become a police officer. That's what these programs is really, it's about. That's what really, like you said, the small victories, Judge Rice, that really makes the difference, because many of the other young people who were in the courtroom saw that process and know that they can get there also.
Absolutely. And I will say this is that, you know, one of the things, and I'm going to get to my final question, but as a community-based provider that is doing the work with all of the judges here, I think that it has humanized the courts in essence to really see that the courts look at young people beyond the nature of the crime that has brought them into the doors, but really look at them as a whole person that is in need of help, the age-appropriate solutions to what we call justice and the right interventions. And so as someone that sees the successes and the failures, I know that our young people, they say, well, the judges, they really care about me like that. They want me to go to high school. They want me to go get a job. And that's a beautiful thing. And I think that what we're doing is really humanizing the courts. So it's not such a punitive system, but actually a system that is actually producing, positive impacts for these young people. So just wanted to add that. I don't know if I have time for one more question, but I'm going to try to squeeze it in. The last question is, and Judge Rice, you jumped right into it. It seems every day now we see a headline that notes overdose related to the explosion of fentanyl being found in other drugs like heroin, cocaine, and methamphetamine. Sometimes these pills are even made to look like candy. Can your programs address these worrisome trends? What we can do in Westchester to stop the rise in deaths, particularly among young people, due to the intentional and unintentional use of fentanyl. And I'm going to ask Judge Davison to start, and then we'll ask the other judges to jump in, and that will be our final question from here.
That's a big question.
It is a big question, but we need it.
Sure, sure. Of course, we have to address the issues of drug abuse and the increase, and I think that has to be something done collectively. As a judge, when we sit on one case at a time with one young person before us. And so we always make sure that we address those issues that have brought them forward, because we know that's some of the, and that's taking the holistic approach, because it's usually not just drugs, it's the issue of homelessness, it's trauma. So young people are not using drugs just because they want to use drugs. They're self-medicating. And so I think that's where education comes in for all of us, to educate our communities to how do we serve our youth. We do it on an individual basis as judges, and we're limited to how we can do it, but we do address it depending on how it comes. And so I want to give my colleagues an opportunity, but I think that's a whole nother program with a global approach to ensure that we get it, and we get it, because we all have the studies on this, and we know that we can affect the change. But as I said, it's a much more bigger issue. But as judges, we deal with it, but we deal individually.
Thank you, Judge Davison. Judge Rice and Judge Williams, I'm going to ask you to keep your comments to 2 minutes or less so we can stay to the time, because I don't want to be the one to mess up our time. So Judge Rice, and then we'll finalize with Judge Williams.
Yeah, I'll just make one point that the nature of drugs in this country, and in New York in particular, is changing, right? We are doing less on the criminalization side. If you just take a look at the marijuana laws and some of those reforms, and now we are recognizing that it's more of a public health model versus a penal model. And with that, we get these cases in court, and it's up to us, it's incumbent on us to recognize some of those dangers and to still be able to have court supervised monitoring of these, but still not criminalize the young people for using drugs. So we have to find that balance of the two, where you're not letting them loose, but you're still holding them accountable, and you're still working with them in a way where you can try to get them to do better and try them to see some other options besides substance abuse. So just want to say it's a changing nature of drugs in the court system and criminalization, and we're right in the middle of it.
Thank you, Judge Rice. And Judge Williams, final response?
I'll be brief. I will say that mental health and substance abuse are two most critical areas that we need public policy shaping. And it's more than the judicial system. We need to have public policy clearly solution-based. And anyone who's on this call who can influence that, please do that, because it's very important. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. We will have time at the end of this program to actually bring the panel back to ask questions and to get to the questions that are also in the chat. I thank you all again for your work, Judge Rice, Judge Davison, Judge Williams. We will bring you back at the latter part of the program. I'm now going to turn it over to Colleen, who will take it from there.
Okay, great. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Joanne. And thank you, Judge Davidson, Judge Rice, and Judge Williams for that excellent panel discussion. I know in New Rochelle, we do like to celebrate the small victories, and we have sort of mini graduation ceremonies in court for the participants who are able to go through the program, which can take 12 to 18 months. So it's a real highlight. We give them certificates and gift cards. And so it's true, we need to celebrate the victories. We now have another exciting element to this program today. We are going to talk with Sean Pica, the Executive Director of Hudson Link for Higher Education in Prison. We're going to see a wonderful video about Hudson Link and then ask him some questions. Hudson Link is a not-for-profit organization that provides college education, life skills, and reentry support to incarcerated and formerly incarcerated men and women. During his tenure with Hudson Link, Sean has grown the program from 60 students attending Nyack College at a Sing Sing correctional facility to more than 650 students attending college prep and college programs annually in 6 New York State correctional facilities. 750 college degrees have been awarded since the organization's inception. Sean has created an alumni services program, which provides support for more than 1,400 alumni. And he's also launched a housing initiative called New Beginnings. Devron, can you put the video on for us, please?
I entered prison at barely 20 years old, reading at a 7th grade reading level and doing math at a 6th grade level. I ended up in the box, and it wasn't until I was 23 hours locked down in that prison cell that I read my first book. I felt so accomplished that I began to read everything that I can get my hands on. My relationship with education changed. I needed some form of redemption, and I think school seemed like the answer.
When you're in your early 20s and they're saying that you've been sentenced to 25 years to life, I had this thought of like, wow, I haven't even been on the planet that long yet. As time started going on, I started looking into some correspondence courses. I did that for a couple of years. Then it just got way too expensive for me to carry on. People were telling me that I should get into college through Hudson Link with Mercy College. When I heard that, immediately went and signed up. The classroom experience is much better than correspondence. It's the personal interaction with the professors, and then you have other students. It's the closest that you can get without being on campus.
I could not believe what I was seeing. The men were bringing books to the yard. They were studying. College changed the dynamics of the prison.
Hudson Link is about giving somebody a second chance at life, and it's using college as the vehicle for that. I was 16 when I was sentenced to 24 years in prison, and I didn't see much of a future. I was actually in the conversations that created Hudson Link. I ended up being in the first graduating class. And now, 13 years later, we're in 5 facilities, over 600 students, 11 college partners. Most of us grew up together. We're incarcerated at some point with each other, and now all of a sudden we're home running a nonprofit. Like, it is an unusual story for sure.
Hudson Link is what's known as a third-party facilitator. We work with the prison, and we take a college partner that's closest to that prison and make it work. We also have an academic coordinator who oversees the everyday movement of this program. We also provide reentry services. We help them to prepare for the world to come.
70% of our staff are formerly incarcerated. They sat in those seats, now they go back into the prisons to deliver these programming. It's through that lived experience that we really know what the students need.
When you have someone that's walked the same walk that you have, it's an automatic connection. It gives you the motivation that it can be done.
This is the boutique. When our men and women come home, they come down here to look for professional style clothing. I'm the first face that they see. I'm a formerly incarcerated woman, so I know how it feels to just get your dignity back and to put on clothing that you have not been able to wear for years. Something to make you feel human, decent again, is just life-changing. They will have their shaving needs. They will have shampoos and conditioners, soaps, toothpaste, toothbrushes, lotions. It's like the essentials. And the biggest thing is the laptops. That's the connectivity.
They have been there every step of the way. They have a men's house that help guys that may not have a place to go, and that's how I met Damon Rosny. He says, well, we have space for you, and we're here to help you. I want to complete my degree. And then one day, now I found myself in the same position they're in, helping someone else.
I'm currently working towards my graduate degree at St. Thomas Aquinas College, and I think a doctorate doesn't seem too far-fetched anymore. I have an 8-year-old son and 16-year-old daughter. To allow them to see me every day waking up, putting on a shirt and tie, working to better myself in every possible way and to reach a level of academia that's going to show them that anything is possible. And I'm just hopeful that I can be that inspiration that Hudson Link was for me.
99% of the students succeed. That is a number that we need to brag about everywhere. Let's grow it to other places. This is an opportunity to change the structure of what the criminal justice system looks like.
When I look back, it's like, man, you could do it. Don't give up. We're out here fighting for you every day. So keep fighting in there, and we'll see you on the other side with open arms.
Hi, Sean, and thank you so much for being
Welcome,
here.
welcome. Thank you so much. I'm honored to be invited.
Oh, yeah, what a great video. Amazing.
That was we've really been blessed as a small nonprofit with like the Jacob Burns Film Center. There's a lot of resources in this neighborhood that other nonprofits don't have access to. So we've really been
Yeah.
blessed.
That's great. Now, in that video, you said that 99% of the participants succeed, which is unbelievable. What kind of educational supports do you give to the participants?
So on the inside, it's every resource that they would have on a traditional campus, minus the internet. So we have computer labs, libraries. Each one of the students has full-time access to their professors. Not every student is taking a full course load. Our real job here is to balance the needs of every individual student. You can't just throw 4 classes at every student. It's just not going to work. But that's the same on any campus, really.
That's true. I see. So they complete the program, the college program, at different times and intervals.
Yeah, there's no correlation between graduating and being released. So guys like me could finish and then they're still there for 2, 3, 4 years. So I went on after graduation to help run the program.
That's great. I know you have also noted that the recidivism rate among Hudson Link participants is only 2% compared to, anywhere from 40 to 70% statewide and nationally. That's just an amazing number. What factors would you say contribute to that incredible result?
I wish I had some secret recipe that I'm hiding from everybody, but the fact is, all we're doing is bringing higher education into places and to communities that never had access to them in the past. Most of the students like me are the first in their family to go to college. It's as easy as that. And quite frankly, we do it so inexpensively. There's no reason why it's not in every single prison.
You have also managed to raise millions of dollars for Hudson Link without any government funding. Another impressive result. Can you tell us how that unfolded?
Well, there were programs like this all around the country until 1994, when the Crime Act took away the Pell funding that was funding these programs. So overnight, hundreds of programs were reduced down to a dozen in the entire country. I was in one of those programs. I was currently going to Skidmore University. I remember the professors coming in and packing up the boxes of books and taking materials without even explaining why. And it was just, it was such a sad thing to watch it go, but also you really felt it in these maximum security prisons. The little bit of hope that was there was now removed when the books left. Because most of the men and women in these prisons in New York know the one chance they do have at a second chance is really through some kind of higher education. And when they were all reduced, replaced, taken away, the women at Bedford Hills figured out how to run a program, and they created a consortium model. Up until that point, the model was one prison, one college program. And I had moved around quite a bit. I was in 9 different max prisons over my time. So as I moved all over New York, every time I got to a new prison, I would start a new program. I had hundreds of college credits, but none of them were linked. It wasn't connected. It was, I was very well-rounded. I just didn't have a degree, but it didn't make sense. And I didn't know that. No one in my family had gone to college, so I didn't understand what I wasn't really getting. And then it was gone. And when the men at Sing Sing heard that the women had figured it out in Bedford, just through this prison grapevine, we sent word, and the women sent back to us a playbook and this model. And the warden at Sing Sing, Brian Fisher, was very, I want to say invested. That's not the right word. He came and found us in the prison and heard that we were working on trying to figure out how to launch a program. And he made it known to everybody that he was in favor of that. And to have the warden's support, and also Elaine Lord, who was the warden at Bedford Hills, just really pushing that college was not going to impact one person, one life, but it had this rippling effect that changed the safety of an entire prison. And I know in the 80s when I was at Sing Sing, like the officers were afraid to walk up the hallway alone. And now today, when I walk through those hallways, it's an honor prison now. And that's really just because of the change that we made, the culture that was changed through education. And we don't charge for it. The Department of Corrections in New York literally is just our partner. I raise the money, but we get no state or federal funding. So as I go out and write proposals and talk to different foundations, I think just the story is unique. And I think, it is the only degree granting college program in a prison in the country that's run and staffed by formerly incarcerated people. and we are truly partners of Commissioner Nucci. So I think having that kind of support and connection means that folks find it easy to support it.
Great. Can you tell us a little about your housing initiative?
Yeah, so when I was finally got into Hudson Lake myself, and I was finishing up my bachelor's degree, the capstone for the undergrad program was a research project. And I had gone into prison at 16, and I was about to be 30, and I'm like, what am I going to write about? I didn't know what to. I just was lost. And one of the officers said, "Well, you're in the carpentry program at Sing Sing. All the people you work with are also in the college with you. Why don't you try to connect those two?" So I wrote a program up that took our students that worked together to rehab houses that would then be housing for our own students. I think I got a C+. Like, it was not a very powerful paper, but years later, when we were moving to our new headquarters in Ossining, I found that file box with the original 16 students' research projects, and I said, "Wait, you can't throw that away. My stuff is in there." And I'd forgotten that I had written about this construction initiative, and I showed it to one of the funders, a local person in Ossining, and I remember she said, "Well, why are the fonts all different?" I said, "Oh, well, I wrote it on a manual typewriter while in A block and living in Sing Sing." And she took out a checkbook and bought us the first house.
Wow.
And
That's
since
great.
we're now on house number 4, the project is really simple. We use our formerly incarcerated men and women upon release in partnership with local contractors to renovate abandoned properties, and then bring them back to life. And then we put our students in them to live in them. So the neighborhood, it's a win-win, because the neighborhood gets these homes that once they're empty this long and abandoned, that no one can bring them back. So it's really been an incredible partnership where our students are now helping the communities they're now living in.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Well, I know you have 2 master's degrees now.
I'm working on a third,
Oh, wow.
doing my
I-
MBA over at Mercy.
Oh, nice. Great. I just wanted to thank you for your work. You've given hundreds of people a second chance at succeeding in life, which is quite amazing. So thank you so much. And thank you for
Can
being
I
here
just
with
have
us today.
one
Sure.
final, I was arrested when I was 16 and sentenced to 24 years in prison. My life was supposed to be over. When I walked in that first cell block, there was nothing there that made me think I had a second chance. The A block is 2 football fields long. It's just that kind of place. And it wasn't the officers, it wasn't myself that made me think that I would take advantage of school. It was the older men that were already there that really just, they made me get up and make my bed and go to school. And they knew I had not gone past the 9th grade. They were going to make me finish my degree. And statistically, I'm not supposed to be on this Zoom with you talking about higher education. I'm supposed to be back in prison if 70% of the men and women go back in the first 3 years. Instead, I'm running around the country helping people. And the only reason I'm able to do that is because we had the courage to bring prison into folks that didn't have a higher education. That's it.
Yeah. Well, that's a remarkable achievement. Thank
I
you.
got the best job in the world.
Okay, wonderful.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm going to hand the floor to Judge Davidson, who is going to introduce one of the participants in her GRIP program. Judge Davidson.
Yes, hi, thank you so much. And Sean, congratulations, your testimony to power of education. I have the great opportunity to bring to you Lily Brady, who just got married, but I met Lily many years ago in my court. And I'm not going to use too much time to introduce her because I want most of the time to be used to her telling her story. But what I can tell you about Lily is that she's resilient, she's powerful, she's bright. When I met her, she was a star athlete, and she has a testimony, as we say in the Black church, of what can happen when you have a court that's focused on changing the lives of youth. So, Lily, welcome. And I'm going to give you the questions together, and I'm going to let you go ahead and speak and tell me a little bit. And as everyone knows from a bio, Lily was born in the Philippines, was in foster care, and then came into Westchester by being adopted. So tell me, what was your experience in court, and how did the family court benefit you?
Like you said, I was adopted in Philippines, and I came here when I was very young. So my life changed when I was 13 years old. That's when I met you, Judge Davison. I was in and out of detention. I had petitioned. I didn't know where my life was going, and I blamed myself. Coming to America, I thought I had a perfect life, but it didn't turn out that way. I was failing in school. I couldn't focus in soccer that I love. And Judge Davison was the one who took me out of the situation, the toxic situation that I had with my family, and helped me focus on school, becoming like an actual teenager. I couldn't be a teenager with my situation where I was living. So Judge Davison helped me focus on my education, helped me focus on flourishing my life, and not to worry about what is happening in my family, to just focus on myself. And without Judge Davison, I don't think I would be able to be in college. I was able to focus on soccer, which helped me go to college. And Judge Davison was the one who said to me, apply for the college that you want and I will help you. And that's what she did. She helped me go to a different state and apply for colleges. And I was very successful. I graduated from Barry University. And the one thing that I really appreciate with Judge Davison was that I didn't have a criminal record. I did go to jail. I had to survive when I was a kid, so I was doing everything stupid. And Judge Davison said, like, you know what, she does not deserve this life. And I took that and I changed my lifestyle. I focused on school. I proved to everyone that I was able to do it. And Judge Davison wasn't wasting her time with me. So again, I couldn't be successful without Judge Davison and her team.
So Lily, tell me, what is it about these special courts that you want to say to everyone listening locally and internationally? Why do they work? What happens? What you were telling me when we were speaking about this earlier this week. Tell me what it is about the court that made the difference.
You guys, you focused on my case, and you asked me what makes me happy, what I want to do, what I want to achieve. And that was the first thing that I was very shocked, because I came across too many judges, and what they did was they just dismissed me and blamed it on me. You didn't. You took my case and said, she's not the problem. Let's see what she can do, what makes her happy, and let's put her to work. And soccer was my happy place. You allowed me to go to the tournament, to go to practice. You allowed me to be a teenager. That was the most important thing. And I couldn't trust the system. I didn't have that trust with you guys until you guys proved to me, I'm not giving up on you. Whatever you decide to do, I'm not going to give up. And that was the one thing I think that was like really important, is that the system does not give up on teenagers, young teenagers. And I've seen that a lot.
I want to say, and I know that we don't have a lot of time, and I know we were allotted 3 to 5 minutes, but I think that's a good place to end with Lily, because that's what she said. She came back and she's been very close to my court attorney, Margarita Garcia, that we did not give up on her. And I think that's the message of all the courts, that my colleagues, Judge Rice, Judge Williams, and Judge Humphrey, that our youth deserve us to believe in them. And I said, we have more than one chance, 2 second chances. And so I, unless you want us to continue, I think it's a good place to end. And Lily is available to answer more questions. That's the whole purpose of these innovative courts, is that we don't punish our way out.
Yes.
We embrace our way and we believe, and you can see you have a living example before you of Lily, who we don't even have time to get into all of the great things that she does, but she's going to be doing for me a specific video that she's going to talk about that. So we hope at some time later to share that with you. Thank you. Thank you, Lily.
Thank you so much to all these inspiring people that we've heard from. I just feel so motivated by all these great stories, by the judges for the work they're doing, and by Sean and Lily for the wonderful transition they made. So now it's time for the Q&A. So I'd like Joanne Dunn and our speakers, including Asha and the three judges and Sean and Lily, I guess. Can we all be on the screen at the same time? And then I think Leslie Sorrell and Joanne Dunn will moderate the chat questions.
Yes.
Can we get the judges on the screen?
I think before we get to the questions, I have to say, I'm over here clapping. I'm over here amening. It is Sunday, and like the Judge Davis has said, testimony, if you go to Black church, a testimony, and I'm over here just clapping and cheering because
amazing.
This conversation just rings so loud in my spirit as a woman that runs an alternative to incarceration program, and seeing that restorative justice really is restoring young people back to their foundation where they can dream about their lives again, right? We're all greater than the worst thing that we've ever done. Some of us needed a first, a second, third, fifth, and a 25th chance. So, I'm just so happy about this conversation. I am going to be joined for the Q&A by Leslie Sorrell, right, Leslie? Hi, Leslie. She's going to be joining me to ask questions. I will start with the first question, and then I will pivot to her for the second question. We will try to get as many questions as we can into the panel. So I guess the first question that we will start with is it possible to include these excellent programs in municipal and/or state budgets? Many district attorneys are on board, but what role can our New York State representatives play? And I think I'm going to start there with maybe Sean, because you get good money. So can you talk to us about how you're doing that?
I think when I first took over the organization, we were about 10 years old, and the only support we had was from local churches and synagogues. It was more about redemption and second chances than it was about higher education, which they go hand in hand. But it was not, and really still is not, a very popular crowd. Formerly and incarcerated men and women, there's not a lot of support going that way. But what I think the big change was, we started to see, like the crash in 08, different financial models, what the current financial situation is, and my colleagues that are out in other nonprofits are watching these state and federal grants go up and down and sideways. Because we don't get state and federal money, means that we run it, it's a very flat market, and we run it without relying on anyone else's help. I think it's actually been easier for us to not receive state and federal funding, but we're also in the richest county in the country. So fundraising in Westchester is very different than my colleagues in Tennessee and I'm currently helping Tennessee and North Carolina, and Herkimer and Buffalo University here in New York, and they do not have the resources that we have here in New York. So if they had to rely on my model, our model, it probably wouldn't be as successful.
Absolutely. Thank you, Sean. And I'm going to ask this, a follow-up. I'd actually ask Judge Lyndon Williams, if you can jump in here from the legislator side, being a prior legislator, how do we get New York State representatives involved in this so that we can seek additional funding?
Well, I think that it has to start with, it's going to be hard for the judges to do it. Why? Is that we've got some rules that kind of hamstring us from getting involved in lobbying type efforts. That can be done through the Office of Court Administration as a general office that oversees the court. But clearly we have representatives. We know a lot of the representatives, and if the judges had the power to really call on our senators and our assembly people, I have no doubt that we will have funding for our programs. But that is not allowed, I understand, through the court system. So there has to be a situation where where you have some collaboration between the not-for-profit programs that support the court system. So, because they can have a discussion with the legislators, they can lobby. We're not allowed to. When I was a legislator, I didn't hear from many of the courts for looking for funding. I funded a lot of the programs that the courts are using, Guiding Center, all of the other programs that were mentioned. I was a part of getting funding for those programs as a legislator, but it wasn't direct funding to the court itself.
So you're basically telling us nonprofits to galvanize
Yes.
advocacy
Yes.
and work.
Yes. Yes. And the same rules apply for county, apply for the state level. So it's not that you have to build a different model.
Absolutely. Leslie, you take it from here.
Well, good afternoon. I wanted to say two things. One, Lily, thank you for joining the panel. It's always great to hear the other side of the story, and particularly from a young, intelligent, beautiful young woman like yourself who took the time, put the energy in, work with the court, and represent everything that we want a young person to succeed on. So thank you and kudos.
Thank
Sean,
you.
I just realized I have been served by a person out of your program for close to 11 years. One of my favorite persons, they're a manager in a coffee shop where they have ownership in Nyack, New York. So thank you for all kinds of reasons, capitation, and you produce an excellent product from the program who consistently contributes to the community in Nyack, New York. So thank you.
Thank you.
You're a
These
living
men and women
example of
they're in all literally the organizations throughout New York State doing casework, social workers, counselors. It's been incredible. And I was at an event recently, Rock Nation and Jay-Z had an event, inaugural social justice event, and I was invited to participate. I had to be down in New York City at 7 a.m. I had my rolly cart with all my t-shirts and stuff, and I wasn't on the list. So I was sitting there, I'm like, I guess I'm about to go home. And a gentleman walks up and says, "Are you Sean?" I thought, oh, great. It was actually one of our students that's now home, that now works for Rock Nation. Got me right through security.
Fantastic. Your good work lives on and extrapolates out into the community. So thank you again. So we have some great questions. They're coming in fast and furious. So work with myself and Joanne, who's doing a wonderful job moderating to get through them all. But one of the questions that I thought would be great to ask, along with the one that was just presented, was one from Lisa, and we'll use first names only. As the panel works to help young people reenter community with productive goals, including college matriculation and graduation, is it possible to encourage them to participate in the election process by voting in local, state, and federal elections? And that's a question, and I'll add another point to that, to make sure that programs such as all those that have been presented tonight and those who are in development can move forward and be funded and sustained. So Joanne, do you want to send that out to a particular?
I'll just jump in real quick at this time.
Great.
So for us, when we get you, we see you, you're at your worst moment. I see you're in handcuffs, you're looking at me, you don't know what to expect. Prior to coming to court, you may have been in college, you may have had a job, but you don't know what's going to happen once you get released. We have new bail reform laws where many of the young people come before us are released, but that doesn't ensure that you'll have your job waiting for you. That doesn't mean that your college won't find out about what happened and kick you out. So what do? We want to turn your situation from you being a liability to you being an asset. Why do I say liability? Because you're before the court. You have all these resources now that are expended. The district attorney's office, you have defense attorneys, you have all these resources that we're marshaling to figure out what to do to get you back on track. And in order to turn you into an asset, what I say by that is you are a contributing member to your community. First, you're accountable to yourself, then to your family, then to the community at large. And what we want you to do is be a true civic member, a true civic neighbor. And in order to do that, you have to be able to do well for yourself and give yourself the best shot of reaching your goals and successes in life. So the ultimate goal for that is for you to have a healthy family lifestyle, for you to have a stable living situation, to have young people to raise. And we want you, yes, to vote and to take advantage of the resourcing in the community and to be a leader. We are turning these young people into future leaders. We need them. Not only do we just want to do the right thing and be nice to them, we actually depend on them. Our society, our future, our community depend on these young people to be the leaders and to live their best lives. So yes, that is the ultimate goal, but it takes a lot of steps to get there, but we want to turn them from liabilities into assets.
Great. Would anyone else
Also
like
like
to
to
jump in?
add, I'm sorry, I agree with Judge Rice. That's the same thing we do on the international level in a post-conflict area, going to do the DDRs or, you know, the intensive programming is to reintegrate them back in. You providing opportunities and becoming future leaders of that area. It's inspirational, inspire others to do the same thing. And, you know, it's for the most part, a great strategy to make it a ongoing thing. And so I totally agree with Judge Rice with his recommendation.
So we'll go.
One other point that is important is that the young people who are successful in the program become leaders for the others. I'm glad to hear that Judge Davidson, Lily is going to be coming back to do a video that can really kind of let that experience, that positive experience, influence others. We've done that in the program. We've had young people come back after their case has been dismissed. They no longer have to come to court, but they're back to the youth shelter to talk to others who are there to impress upon them how important it is for them to stay through the program. So very, very important.
Absolutely. And I think that's the work that we're doing, is that once we, in Judge Rice's term, make a young person an asset, they become a credible messenger in essence. And I think of the work that Sean is doing, those credible messages and messengers resonate so much more powerful than just me telling them what to do. But when they know someone that has walked the journey similar to theirs, it allows them to see life in a different lens, and really because they become a model. And so Lily, thank you for your work. I'm going to skip to a question for Lily before time runs out, because Lily and Sean, you're the most powerful piece for us on this call. Lily, there's a question in the chat and it came from Tatiana, and it said, do you have any advice for young persons impacted by the justice system and how they can create change in their current situation?
Yeah. I would honestly tell the young, I was actually mentoring a lot of the young kids. And the one thing that I actually found very interesting was they didn't trust the system. That was the one thing. And that was my issue. I didn't trust the system. And listening to the other young kids dealing and going through this, they didn't have that team that I had. They didn't have they didn't have a team that actually really cared about them. And the one thing that I do want to tell the kids that's in the system is to never give up. To never give up. Trust the work that the system is putting you through, and just follow it and everything will work out. And that's what I think the young kids are so impatient. They want to see the change so quick, and it doesn't happen overnight. I went through, so many obstacles, and it didn't happen overnight for me. It was, and it's really up to you to change. It was up to me to change. And if the kids don't have that mentality to change, then it's unfortunate. But they put that blame on the system. And I just want to tell them, like, you know what, the system will be there, but you have to open up. You have to allow the system to help you.
Yes.
So
Lily, I love it. I love the fact that you say we see you first. We see you as an individual, and then you have to open your heart, mind, soul, and spirit to actually be a part of the process, because the process can actually help you than it can hurt you. And so I love what you say is that, and also it took time, right? You didn't get these, overnight where you are,
No.
right? It took time, it took people pouring into you, and it took also the role of you to see that the court was not a punitive measure, because our perception becomes reality all the time.
Yes.
And so I think that I love what you say, and I love how you say that after time and after being involved, you actually saw the beauty of the program, and it really poured into you to where you're at now. So great
Yes.
job, and kudos to you.
One more thing, I didn't see the outcome until I actually finished college and I was able to get a career. And I had to sit back and I said to myself, it's like, I honestly would not have this lifestyle without the team Judge Davison and her team. And I do owe them at my life. And I do want to help the young kids to understand the system is not broken. And that's where I think that's the issue. It's like the system is broken. Meanwhile, it's not. So
the system is designed to do exactly what it's designed to do. But I think, Lily, I'm speaking for Judge Davison and her team, but I would say they were just the medium for you to get there. You put the work in. And so you have to really give yourself much more honor and credit, because you did the work to get where you are. And that's a part of restoring justice and nourishing peace, is that we can see young people now and actually still promote a brighter future. And it may have took you to where you're at now to say, wow, as I look back over my time span, look where I'm at now.
Yes.
But you actually put in the work to get here. And I think that that's a part of our work. When we're restoring justice for young people, we're actually allowing them to have a brighter future and actually a life fulfilled. And that's the work of what we want to do here. And so I'm not sure, Marcia, do we want to jump into more questions? I know we're supposed to end at 4:30, but I know we're getting our rhyme and reason. So, you can cut me off at any time. So
I will just say that if people are willing to stay, we could definitely extend for 15 minutes. So please continue with the questions.
All right. So I'm going to pivot to Leslie, who's going to take it from here and ask another question.
We have the perfect panel, and I say that in all sincerity. And thank you, Lily, for bringing tears to my eyes for the fourth time on this Sunday. However, we have a great question, and I think we'll put this out to the panelists at large. What gender differences do you see with your participants in terms of needs and the strategies that are successful for male versus females? So who wants first to bat on that?
I'll jump in. So for us, when we look at the numbers, we've served over about 200 young people in the 2 years that we've been working with OYP. And the ratio that we see generally is about 3-to-1 of males to females. And aside from the numerical differences, there are a lot of other differences that we see. So for one, we have a nice factoid that we like to use. One of the key differences, just as far as the makeup, as far as them coming to court, young people, males versus females, we find that the young ladies are way more prone to have co-defendants. So they're about 50% coming in with co-defendants versus the guys about 10 to 15%. And those are assault cases where they're fighting together. Those are petty larceny cases where they're shoplifting together. Why they are doing this together more so than guys who seem to be more lone wolves. We don't know. We're trying to find that out. There are a lot of studies being done. We know that we're looking at the brain science. We know that the young ladies in our part seem to do better faster. They seem to be able to have it more together coming in. They're more likely to be working. They're more likely to be in school. And it seems that the criminal behavior may be more of an aberration versus the guys, where there's more inherent needs that they require. So we have this philosophy in OYP called disengagement. And what we simply like to do is disengage those from the court process as soon as possible when we realize or recognize that they really shouldn't be in court. Sometimes you get arrested and we see you and we work with you and we realize instantly about a month or so that this person doesn't really need any supervision. They have it all together. They kind of shown and proved that this is a one-time thing. Then there are others who require more supervision, more monitoring, more hands-on involvement. And the young ladies we find are easier to disengage from the court process versus the guys. There's a study out there that shows that just with the brain science, young ladies' brains mature faster than guys. I have children, and the guys and the girls, and maybe that can be proven just from anecdotally in my household. But we are seeing differences, and because of those differences, we need to have resources that address those differences.
I think what we see is the trust level of the system is different. You can probably get the young ladies more to kind of understand the need to go along engage in the program. Sometimes with young men, it's very difficult because oftentimes they come in with different economic circumstances. When one is coming in without housing and standing before you, don't know where they're going to sleep tonight, it's a very different situation. And that is a reality for we find a number of young men in that situation, that their housing instability is very, very much. And those are the young men you find come in on trespass charges, basically, or shoplifting. Some of them come in on violent offenses also. Young women, what we find also is that, and Joanne can probably speak on this more, because we had one young lady that actually did extremely well, and some others, they're more going to follow the process in terms of a process designed to get them to the outcome more strictly than our young men. Sometimes some of our young men, we have to start over. We've got to bring them before the judge and let them know that, hey, you have to be responsible if you're going to continue this program. More tough love, in other words, have to be with young men than you have with a lot of the young ladies. And I think it comes from the whole socioeconomic situation that they find themselves in, rather than just some kind of a gender. I don't believe it's necessarily a gender a particular trait, but I think the socioeconomic circumstances that they find themselves in are different, oftentimes different. Not to say that young ladies don't have difficult times, they do, but they handle it differently. And so that's what our experiences have been. We try to make sure that we don't, we take into account what the experiences have been or what their living conditions are in designing a program. And I think that's, Joanne could probably speak more on that in terms of what they have seen at the youth shelter concerning the young women and young men.
Yes, I would say, just to add to that, I think also when you think of particularly young men and young men of color, they've had more encounters in essence too as well with police or law enforcement. And I think sometimes, again, like Lily said, is trying to change the perception. And I think that this court, again, the courts that are enacting GRIP court, the emerging adult justice, OYP, these are humanizing the courts so that young people can be seen as young people. And then also judges and the community or the system, we're really uplifting a community for these young people that they've never really had before. And so I think, again, a part of this work is also changing the perception, because young men have been, I'm going to say, I don't want to say over criminalized, but yes, they have in essence, particularly young men of color. So they are a little bit more hesitant to be involved with the program, not really knowing what it is or what is going to be the outcome. So we have seen that, but that's where we're at here.
Can I just say one thing? I apologize, I got dropped, but I also would just want to say, when it comes to girls, and particularly girls of color, they enter the system at a different point than boys do. And studies show that girls are brought into court for more low-level crimes. Boys have a tendency to be brought into court for more serious crimes. And so what happens is girls are criminalized because of girl, quote, behavior. And that's why addressing it. And also why these courts are important is this: girls, when respond better to mentorship, talking a situation out. That's the way women work. When we have a confrontation, we need to have ability to have mentors, social workers, and work. Boys, I can issue an order of protection. Boys say, you stay away from each other. They do. With girls, somehow it circles back in. So that's why the other reason why these courts are so important, because you can't have a one size fits all, specifically when you're dealing with girls and girls of color. You must have, which I know the sorority sister links up, we talk about mentorship, which is one key point, but girls have to respond. We have to respond to the needs of girls much differently than we do boys. It works for boys too, but you can't do the same for boys that you do for girls. You can for girls, but so I just wanted to make that point. And I apologize for getting dropped.
We were glad you got back on, Honorable Davidson. So we have a great question because, as we know, we're talking about SDG 16, which is access to peace, justice, and strong communities. And we'd like to kind of pivot back out and take a global view and place this question with you, Asha. So at the international level, can you speak more to how restorative justice works in times of conflict?
Thank you. Yes. There's 3 different approaches that I can see on how this works. Again, in UN peacekeeping, which you will see that the police contributing countries will go into a post-conflict area, and the one main approach that they will work on right away is restoring rule of law in that post-conflict area. So, and then making sure that the rule of law over time works. It's really critical when it comes to for stabilization operations. Then in the meantime, while you're trying to restore it, you just run into situations where it's still not strong enough to take on establishing a rule of law in that sovereign state. So you'll see sometimes international approaches like establishing an international criminal tribunal, which we've seen for Rwanda in the past, which is really critical because of the kind of atrocities or genocide. You'll also see where some sovereign states will go to the International Criminal Court to help, prosecute a specific state or a leader within there to ensure that the rule of law does work, because the rule of law within that sovereign state has completely collapsed or is trying to restore itself. And then you'll see other additional approaches, like what we saw the other day, where the entire international community at the UN General Assembly voted against Russia based on their aggression on Ukraine, and allowed that to set the tone on establishing some sort of rule of law internally. So there's different ways on how the international community responds to it as far as restoring justice.
Thank you for your robust response. Gwen?
Welcome.
Yes. So I think at this moment in time, unfortunately, we can't get to our last question because at this point we have ran over our time. We are now almost embarking on 15 minutes over our time. So Matthew, we will get to you. Matthew is a local person who knows how to connect to us here and also to Judge Rice at OYP Court. So I'm going to actually thank our panel, thank our Sean Pika, Lily, Judge Davison, Mysora. Thank you for being here to represent on the global front. I'm going to turn it over, Judge Rice. I'm going to turn it back into the hands of Marcia, who will take us home from there.
Thank you so much, Joanne, and every single person on the panel, speakers, moderators, everyone who contributed to our program was so inspiring and motivated and committed. I mean, that is what it's all about. And if we can inspire other people to be so committed, I think we have a path to victory. We're all impressed with what is possible in peace, justice, and strong institutions. I just wish it were more widespread. And so that's our task, to make it more widespread. I want to thank all our speakers, Asha Castleberry Hernandez, and judges Kathy Davidson, Lyndon Williams, and Jared Rice, and moderator Joanne Dunn, and also Leslie Sorrell. Thank you to our co-sponsors, the UNA Board of Directors and the Program Committee, UNA Bronx, and the Links Incorporated, and most importantly, Thank you to our wonderful participants for joining us today and asking thoughtful questions. We encourage you all to join UNA USA and to support the work of the United Nations at the local and global level. You can join at www.unausa.org/join, and you select the chapter New York Westchester. Introductory rates are only $25 and per year, and free for young people under 26. Now, Devron is showing the slides that will give us more information of where to get more resources. And I just wanted to wish a happy UN Day to everyone tomorrow. I will be at the UN for the UN Day program there, and we will be raising the UN flag in Hastings-on-Hudson at 8:45 tomorrow morning. So thank you to everyone again. It was the most inspiring program and we learned so much. So thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.